All right, so today we're diving into this blog post about a pond, and it's got some pretty ambitious plants in it, like seriously ambitious. We're talking explosive growth. The kind that makes you wonder who's really running the show in this little ecosystem.
Yeah, what I find so interesting about this is, we make all these assumptions about what plants need to really thrive, but then nature comes along and kind of throws us a curveball.
For sure. Our source material today is a blog post, and it's from kianmeng.org. It's called Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 84, Explosive Growth of Aquatic Plants. The author's name is Eng, and he's observing some really rapid changes in his outdoor pond, and it seems like it's all because of the recent weather, all that hot, dry, humid weather we've been having.
It really is kind of wild how these small environmental changes can have a huge impact. It's like flipping a switch, and suddenly you've got a jungle on your hands.
Yeah, Eng specifically mentions three plants, water wisteria, common salvinia, and duckweed. And it sounds like the duckweed is the one stealing the show right now, spreading like crazy all over the surface.
Wow. With duckweed.
Yeah.
Notorious for growing super fast.
Ah.
But that really brings up an interesting point. What happens to the other plants when one species starts to dominate like that?
Well, Eng was actually assuming that his water wisteria preferred some shade. But now with the duckweed taking up all the sunlight, it's kind of making him rethink that whole idea.
It really shows how observation can challenge our assumptions.
Hmm.
We think we know what a plant prefers, but then it goes and thrives in these unexpected conditions.
So how does this competition for resources play out in the pond? I mean, it's a limited space. Everyone needs sunlight nutrients. What's happening there?
Imagine it like a really crowded dance floor, right? Everyone's trying to find space, and some dancers are just a little more aggressive about getting their spot. And in this case, the duckweed is that aggressive dancer, spreading quickly and potentially pushing out the competition.
And what about the common salvinia? It's a floating plant too, so I imagine it's facing a tough time against that duckweed.
Absolutely. Even though they're both on the surface, they're still fighting for those same resources. It's like two roommates fighting over the wifey. It's all about who gets the most bandwidth, or in this case, the sunlight and nutrients.
So it's like a battle for survival going on at the microscopic level.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is how Ang is managing this situation. He talks about removing some of the duckweed to try and restore balance. It's like he's a referee in this little aquatic arena.
That's a great point. It shows how humans, even unintentionally, can shape ecosystems. By taking out some duckweed, he's giving the other plants a chance and promoting that biodiversity.
So it sounds like a constant balancing act to make sure no one species takes over completely. But I'm wondering, isn't there some risk of disrupting the natural order by interfering? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? When do we step in and when do we let nature do its thing? It's a tough one.
It's true. Aang put those plants there in the first place. So, in a way, he's already made an artificial ecosystem. I guess it makes sense. He'd want to manage it so everything can survive. But then again, maybe nature knows best.
Yeah, it's a real dilemma. But, Aang mentioned he's going to keep an eye on things and how they grow. I'm curious, what do you think will happen when the seasons change when it's not so hot and dry anymore?
Well, I'm not an expert or anything, but I'm guessing things will slow down a bit. Right now, it seems like all that heat and humidity is what's making them grow so fast. Once it cools off, I think things would even out a little.
That's definitely possible. Duckweed loves the heat, so if it gets cooler, that could help even the playing field.
Mm.
But there's something else to consider too, the sunlight. As we get into fall and winter, the days get shorter, right?
Right.
And that could affect all the plants, especially the ones on top.
Oh, right, because even if the duckweed isn't growing as fast, it's still blocking the sunlight from the water wisteria underneath. It's like a permanent shade over the bottom of the pond.
Exactly. And here's another thing to think about. As those plants die off, they decompose and put nutrients back into the water. That could actually cause another growth spurt even when it's colder. It's this whole cycle of life and death happening right there in the pond.
Wow, so it's not just the temperature, it's the sunlight, the nutrients, even the life cycle of the plants. It really is a dynamic little world down there.
It really is. And that makes what Aang is doing even more important. He's got to be ready to adjust how he's managing things as conditions change. It's like a dance between him and Mother Nature.
I'm starting to see it like a game of chess.
Yeah.
You have to think a few steps ahead, try to predict what your opponent's going to do, and be ready to change your plan if things don't go your way.
That's a great analogy. It shows how much strategy goes into maintaining that balance in an ecosystem, even a small one like this pond. And it makes you think about bigger ecosystems too.
Absolutely. Whether it's a pond, a forest, or the whole planet, we have to remember that what we do has consequences. We can't just assume nature will always take care of itself. We have to be responsible.
That's so important. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about observation. The more we understand how ecosystems work, all the little details, the better decisions we can make about how to protect them.
Aang mentioned something interesting about how his water wisteria is handling the lack of sunlight. It's doing better than he expected. What can we learn from that?
I think it reminds us that nature is full of surprises.
Hmm.
We tend to put plants in these neat little boxes based on what we think we know. But in reality, it's much more complicated. Plants are so resilient and adaptable. They're always pushing the limits of what we thought was possible.
So it's like this tiny water wisteria is challenging our assumptions and making us rethink how plants adapt to different conditions?
Exactly. Who knows? Maybe this observation will lead to new discoveries about how plants deal with changes in light. That could be important for all kinds of things like agriculture or even gardening in cities.
Wow, that's amazing. It just goes to show that even the smallest observations can have a huge impact, and it makes you wonder what other secrets are hiding in that little pond.
That's what's so exciting. There's always something new to discover, something else to learn about. And the more we explore, the more we realize how connected everything is. Aang's Pond is just a tiny example of the bigger web of life that connects us all.
So what would you say is the main takeaway from all this? What do you hope people will remember after listening to this?
For me, it's understanding that ecosystems are always changing. There's this constant push and pull, all these factors working together. And our job as humans is to try and understand those complexities and act in a way that keeps things in balance.
It's about moving away from trying to control everything and instead being more collaborative and respectful of nature.
I like that. So here's something to think about. Aang is going to keep watching his pond as the seasons change. But imagine you're Aanging. How would you manage this little ecosystem? Would you step in or let nature run its course?
That's a really good question. It makes you think about how responsible we are for the environment, even in our own backyards. It seems like it's all about finding that balance between keeping the ecosystem healthy and making sure all the plants and animals in it are doing okay.
Yeah, there's no easy answer. It takes a lot of observation, thinking things through, and be willing to adjust your approach as things change.
It's a learning process. I think that's what makes this so interesting. It's not about having all the answers, but about exploring and being open to learning new things.
I agree. And who knows, maybe some of our listeners will be inspired to create their own little ecosystems and see what they can discover.
That's a great idea. Imagine all the amazing things we could learn from these miniature worlds and how much closer it would bring us to nature. But before we finish up, I think we should leave our listeners with one last thing to think about, something that will stick with them.
I like that. Okay, here's a question for you, the listener. As you go about your day, take a moment to really look around and appreciate the incredible web of life all around you. From the smallest bugs to the tallest trees, it's all connected. And what you do, even the little things, makes a difference. So I want to ask you, how will you choose to interact with nature? Will you be a force for good, or will you contribute to its decline? It's up to you.
It's amazing what we can learn from just one guy in his little pond.
Yeah, it really is. Like, you don't have to be a scientist or anything to learn about nature. Sometimes just being curious and paying attention is enough.
And having a way to share what you find out, too. Aang's blog post started as just some notes about fish, but it's turned into this whole conversation about ecosystems and competition and how nature keeps things in balance.
That's what's so cool about sharing what you learn. It inspires other people to ask questions and make their own observations and maybe even challenge what they thought they knew.
It's like planting a seed of curiosity that can grow into something amazing.
Exactly. And maybe this episode will get some of our listeners thinking about the ecosystems around them too. You know, like a pond in their backyard or a park, or even just some weeds growing in the sidewalk.
There's a whole world out there just waiting to be discovered, and a lot of it is right in front of us.
And the more we understand about all these connections, the better we can take care of our planet for the future.
So to wrap things up, let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, as you go about your day today, try to see things with new eyes. Notice all the life around you. The birds, the trees, the little bugs. It's all connected, and we're part of it too.
It's a good reminder to appreciate nature and treat it with respect.
Because when we take care of nature, we're really taking care of ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into explosive plant growth. We'll see you next time for another adventure into the unexpected and amazing world around us.